Heartbreaker, Chapter 2. Don't Talk to Strangers. Helena waved Sophie goodbye. The girl had left her in a red Alfa Romeo, all alone on the campsite. She felt a bit upset that she was of no use, but it was probably for the best, she thought to herself. She wasn't fast, nor strong. Then she frowned for a second at her last thought. But working out in the garden and hacking wood with an axe might make you stronger? She lifted her arm and clenched her fist. She smiled at the sight of her upper arm's muscles. She never really had taken a look at it, but at least this made her feel a little better about herself. Willem came walking down the path towards his caravan, and he saw Helena flexing her arm. He stood still for a moment to take in the picture. It looked a bit funny to see such a cute girl in a summer dress stare at her upper arm with such a big smile on her face. She didn't even notice him until he spoke up. "Helena, are you doing alright?" Her face turned quickly from happiness and pride to shock and shame, as she turned her face to meet the eyes of Willem. That must have looked stupid, she thought. She didn't want to come over as brainless in any way towards others. But on the other hand, she and Sophie would probably leave in a few days. Meaning, if the people around her thought of her to be strange, she would probably never have to meet them again. Yet, this investigation of the forest could also take weeks. Now that made Helena very uncomfortable. A few minutes had passed with Helena staring at Willem, not really knowing how to respond, and Willem staring back at the poor girl. "Nice talk, I'm going to grab some toilet paper and do my thing at the toilet block," he said, breaking the silence. Helena then snapped out of her thoughts. "I'm sorry, I was just looking if I had some arm muscle. That must have looked weird. Sophie wanted me to stay here at the campsite, since I might not be strong enough." The man gave her a smile and said, "Your sister must be very protective of you then. It's a good thing though. That means she cares about you a lot." Helena smiled at that comment. Then a thought jumped in her mind from what he said previously. "Thanks, but something completely different? Caravans have toilets built in usually, right? Why go to the front to go there?" "Because emptying a tank filled with God knows what is not something I'm planning on doing every day for 3 weeks," he said with a weird smile on his face. Helena could only guess that this is what his last vacation looked like, together with his wife. Poor man, and his back. Willem then walked off. Helena stood at the other side of the path again, alone. She turned around and made her way towards the small tent. Inside the tent were 2 air mattresses, along with 2 sleeping bags and 2 pillows. The front of the tent had just enough room for their bags filled with clothing. It was warm inside the tent, to the point where Helena thought she would be baked alive if she stayed inside a minute longer. She quickly grabbed her bag and sat on the grass a few meters away from the hellish temperature from the tent. She rubbed her eyes for a moment and then placed one of her hands on her forehead. A temperature like that could give a person a headache, that's for sure. She opened the bag that lay next to her. Besides clothing, Helena had packed some other things as well. She started digging through the content that was inside, until she pulled out a sketchbook and a pencil case. The bag, on the other hand, needed to go back in the tent. She couldn't just leave it outside, not in the grass, nor on the dining table, that stood not very far away from the tent. It's not like there's anything that's important inside of it, but the thought of kids rummaging through her stuff was not ideal. Even though most kids on the campsite looked like angels, There were a handful that looked like tricksters, and seemed to act like it as well. Helena sighed and put the bag inside the tent as quickly as she could. With sketchbook in hand and pencil case in the other, she took off. As she crossed a small bridge that connected the playground with the area of the tents, the first thing she caught her eye were the clovers that covered the field. There were flowers hidden in the grass here and there. They had such a beautiful purple color to them. She sat down under a tree and started sketching one of the clover flowers away on the blank sheets. During the drawing process, her mind trailed off. How would it be with Sophie? Even though she loved hunting trips, this wasn't exactly the job she wanted. She always talked about archery and how she wished to become the best, or maybe even a teacher. It was this dream of hers, and Helena supported her all the way through. Even though Sophie was amazing in her job as a forester and a great hunter, her passion lay in archery. But in the end of the day, someone had to take over for their parents. They weren't young anymore. Mrs. and Mr. Miller had children in their late 30s. So with that in mind, they were somewhere a little over 60 years old. Helena, on the other hand, secretly wished she could do something with her art. But art was tough business to be in, and with drawings of flowers, she might not even make it. There was always plan B, a flower shop. If she could not sell drawings of flowers for a living, then maybe she could sell the flowers themselves. She had become quite good at flower arranging and had even made a few pieces for Christmas for family members in the past. A football then shot directly next to her face. Her eyes widened as she slowly looked up from her paper. There was a thick line from the pencil on the paper now, but nothing an eraser could not fix. Helena looked past the tree and saw a round, black and white ball bounce multiple meters behind her and come to a stop. A few children ran after it to catch it, and a man stopped in front of her. "Sorry for that. I hope my kids and I didn't startle you." She looked up to see a man with broad shoulders and short red hair. "I'm okay. The kids probably didn't mean to shoot the ball my way." The father then stood up and looked at the kids with a stern look. "Emma, niet in je mond stoppen!" He yelled at one of the kids. Helena looked back to see a small girl from maybe 4 years old with mint leaves in her mouth. It looked rather cute. Mint wasn't a dangerous plant and was often used for tea, so she doubted she would get sick from eating it. Helena then stood up, plucked one of the flowers and took it with her to the front of the camping. There was a small spot where people could sit, with a bit of Wi-Fi, but it also had table tennis tables and a table football table. Not only fun for children, but also for the older people on the campsite. A friend from my father had known to break one in an incident, a little over a year ago. They and the rest of the men in the room had a good laugh that day. She sat down at one of the tables and took out a phone. On the piece of paper that hung on one of the pillars stood a code for the Wi-Fi. Good, she thought. Now she didn't have to ask for it. She filled it in and waited until her phone connected with the internet. It took quite a while. She put it down on the table and continued with the drawing. The thick line she made when the football flew past her was not as easy to erase as she thought. She pressed the clover flower inside the book and put it down, only to see the guy from yesterday sit in front of her. She stared at him for a moment. She still hadn't forgiven him for making her puke. You got some balls sitting in front of me after what you did yesterday, Helena said as she looked back at her phone. Well, I'm here to say that I'm sorry. Daniel and I wanted to make a joke, but We didn't know you would believe a word we said. Helena did not respond. She didn't even look at him. The Wi-Fi does not work, trust me. I'm sitting here for almost an hour, waiting for it to get back up. She looked up, a little sad. Anything important you wanted to search? He then asked. Well, kinda. Just some information about Clovis. And maybe send a message to my sister. Information about Clovis? What do you need that for? He bent forward. He seemed a little confused, but also interested. Just for a drawing I made. I wanted to know its Latin name, family and stuff like that. In the tone of her voice you could hear that she didn't trust him. That, and she clenched her sketchbook in her arms, as if she wanted to protect the secrets that were inside. Let's start over. My name is Max, the man said as he reached out his hand. There was a friendly smile on his face. Maybe he wasn't as bad as she thought he was. She took a hold of his hand and shook it carefully. My name is Helena. Nice to meet you, Helena. Could I see your sketchbook? She thought for a moment before handing it over to him. He opened it up to see drawings from one beautiful flower after the other. These are amazing. You should enter the drawing competition. Helena raised her brow. There is a drawing competition here on the campsite today. I think you stand a good chance of winning. Helena chuckled a bit. Wouldn't that be a little unfair towards all of the children? Are you telling me that you are scared of losing to a bunch of kids? Helena stood up and smashed her flat hand on the table. I am not. But why would I enter as the only adult? Would you perhaps be afraid to lose from me? Max stood up to meet Helena's eyes. He was bigger than she was. Not in a million years. You're on. The two shook each other's hands. Loser has to treat the winner to dinner, Max said. Sounds great. If I win, you get to pay for both Sophie and I. Sophie can pay for her own food. Besides, where is she? Helena sat back down again with a sigh. She is in the forest nearby. Probably trying to find that beast you and your friend were talking about last night. And she believed that? That was just an old fishwife still. I hardly believe that there are evil spirits or wolves in the forest. Believe me, I've tried to tell her that. But she's very overprotective. It's probably just a disease. Or hunters killing the animals and scaring them away. She looked him in the eye. The expression on her face told Max she was talking about him and his friend Daniel. Oh boy, he thought. She hit the nail on the head. Well, he gave a quick look on his watch. Look at the time, the contest is almost going to start. Aren't you excited? I am. You could see the guilt on Max's face. He knew that he was in the wrong. He and Daniel had indeed gone on a hunting trip in the exact same forest. What made the situation worse is that they had been able to catch a bunny. But that was all. The only animal they had found that day. One after the other child sat down on the benches. Max wasn't joking when he said that the contest was about to start. The camping owner's daughter then stood in between the ping pong tables, with a big pile of paper sheets in her hand. Okay, if everyone can take a seat, I will give you all your sheets of papers and markers to draw with. There was a big box standing on top of one of the ping pong tables. They were probably in there, Helena thought. The woman started giving the pieces of paper to the kids. When she came to the table where Helena and Max sat, she said, "Could the two of you move somewhere else? It will only be for an hour, and then the event is over." She gave a kind smile. "Thanks, ma'am, but we are good. We like to draw along if that's alright with you," Max answered. She looked a little confused, but gave the sheets of paper anyway. do realize that you can't win, right? One of the kids stood up from the table and asked the woman something. She seemed very excited, but Helena could not understand what she said. The woman answered her, and then went back to the box filled with pencils and markers. The prize is free ice cream. The girl asked about it. You can speak Dutch? Helena asked. A little, mainly hands and feet. The pencils and markers were dropped on the table, and it was time to begin. Ready, set, go. About an hour later, the camping owner's daughter blew a whistle, and it was time to stop. Both put the pencils down, and it was time to see who was the winner. Helena and Max held up the drawings. You didn't even use the supplies that were given. I mean, it looks beautiful anyway. Thanks, Max. Yours looks interesting. Is it modern art? He looked back to take a good look at his own drawing. A few kids stood behind him and started pointing things out. What did they say? Helena asked. My dog looks like an elephant. Oh, and that it should be better in blue? Helena did her best to keep herself from laughing, but it did bring a smile on her face. Well, it's truly a beautiful dog. Max gave her a smile back. Since my elephant can't win from your flower power, I shall treat you to dinner. Every Friday, food carts come to visit the village nearby. So I thought it'd be a good idea for you to taste some local food. Helena looked surprised. You mean the village on the other side of the road? I hear that there's a walking route to get up the hill easily. I shall call Sophie to tell her to come and join us there when she's finished for today. Do your best, we're in a valley. Calling someone can be quite a hard task. Helena dialed Sophie's number, trying not to look away from Masker's smirk. But the call did not go through. Told you, Max said. How am I supposed to contact my sister now? The tone of her voice sounded gloomy. We will return as quickly as possible. Then we can eat together here on the campsite. I bet Daniel will be as hungry as a wolf. Very funny, Helena quickly answered. When evening slowly started to fall, Helena and Max made their way up the hill to the small village. Okay, but what kind of food do they serve? Helena asked as the two walked through the village. You will see in a minute. We're almost there. They arrived at a square filled with tables and benches. In a circle format around it stood the food carts. All kinds of smells filled the air. Fresh bread, wine, roasted chicken, fries. There was even a stand that sold melons. It had been a while since Helena ate one of those. Maybe Sophie would like to have some too for dessert. Alright, go wild. You may pick what the four of us are going to eat tonight. Helena started eyeing the melon, but decided to walk over to the chicken food cart. We'll get the melon later. I saw you ogling it, can't blame you. Helena almost stopped in her tracks, but decided not to answer. After half an hour of standing in lines, Helena and Max finally got everything together. Helena walking proudly with a big sugar melon in her arms and a sack that held the fries in the other. Max then stopped walking to look at the small funfair setup they made. That's new. Never seen that before. Wanna take a look? He pointed at one of the stands. It looked like it was a game where you had to shoot the balloons to win a prize. Sophie would have loved to try that out. She stared at it, only to find out that Max was already standing in front of the stand, ready to win a stuffed animal. You've got to be kidding me, she whispered to herself. She made her way over to the man, who had now an air gun in his hand. The bag with roasted chicken was now standing on a small table next to the stand. Max, you promised me we would go back after getting the food. What if Daniel and Sophie get back before we do? He will be worried. Max sighed. Not even one round? No! Let's shoot balloons next time, okay? He put the air gun down and picked up the chicken bag. Fine, princess, but I will outshoot you. Princess? And who said that I'm going to shoot? Sophie is the one who can handle a gun, and I bet she will do just fabulous. The two laughed and went back to the campsite. It was getting late. The two should have been back, but there was no sign of anyone. The campsite looked rather empty. Most of the people were still eating in the village. It was so silent that it was ear-deafening. Helena sat in front of Max on the dining table. She and Sophie had sat up yesterday. "You should eat before it gets cold," he told her. He also seemed gloomy. Both wondered if something had happened in the forest, and why it took Daniel and Sophie so long to get back. Helena didn't respond, and slowly chewed on her fries. Sophie, on the other hand, was now standing face to face with the wolf of Daniel's story. Without breaking eye contact, she brought up her air gun, pointing it at the furry animal in front of her. Slowly, she walked backwards, back into the bushes she came from. But with every step she took, the wolf followed her. She made a decision. Shoot it and make a run for it. An air gun like hers was not capable of killing a big animal, like a wolf. So this was the only option. But if she could just hit a target, she might be able to slow it down. Bang! The cracking sound of the air gun filled the air. Without looking if she had hit a target, Sophie spun around and started to run. She was quick, but the wolf was quicker. She dropped her back in the process. With that weight lifted from her back, she might be able to increase her speed. However, this also meant that she had to go back into the forest tomorrow to retrieve her back. And that didn't seem like a welcoming thought. It felt like fire was burning in her lungs. It would not take long until she could no longer go forth. And then it happened. She had not seen where she had been going and tripped over one of the roots from the trees surrounding her. After her body met the ground, she turned around to see the wolf. There it stood, only a few meters away from her. Eaten alive by a wolf. Is that how I'm going to die? Sophie thought to herself. Out of the blue, a whistle was heard throughout the forest. Was it a bird? It sounded so strange. Not a tune she recognized from home. The wolf pointed his ears up and ran off after it had stopped. Strange, Sophie thought, but at least it meant she could now get the hell out of there. But where was there? Or rather, here. The map of the forest was in a backpack, and that she had thrown away. She decided to walk into the direction she had came from. With all the turns and twists she had made, it was not easy to find her bag. But maybe it could save her. A sign was hung up on one of the trees that read, "Private Area." That's strange, she thought. She didn't remember there being one. Maybe someone lived in the forest that could help her out. Well, 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 what do we have here? A trespasser on my piece of land. Speaking of the devil, and you may step on his tail, Sophie thought, almost saying it out loud. He inspected her for a moment, and his facial expression changed. Are you hurt? What happened to you? Still panting from the long run, Sophie replied, Please, I need to get out of this forest. I need to call the police. Before she could continue, the man cut her off. Calm down, take deep breaths. It's going to be okay. My cottage is not far from here. You can use my phone. Sophie shook her head. No, I have my own. She cut herself off, after realizing her phone was still inside her bag. Shit, she thought. Actually, that would be great.